was one of the pivotal moments that I decided that I'll quit my job over here.
That defines your product philosophy?
It's I would say it's navigating through the sea without a compass. That's another drill for me. I'm going in a company which is pretty big in size. I'll just land over here, start my job, and kind of start delivering on day one. Now, that's not how Google works.
Hi everyone, welcome to the another episode of The Voice of Visionaries. Today we have a very special guest. Today we have our guest Dhirendra Sinha, who spent 1.5 decades of a time building an enterprise level product, scaling them into a different variety of a cloud and big data. Now, in today's episode, we will going to talk about Dhirendra's journey, what is his career path, how exactly he landed to Google, what is the key point that he decided to go into the product management role, how exactly now he's building the product inside the Google, what is the product mindset, what is product thinking, and how to build the strategy for a world-class product which is going to be implemented for the billions of people. So in today's episode, we will going to see how to build this enterprise level product, what Google is talking about the product, what is the product thinking, and everything in a one episode we will going to cover. So please welcome Dhirendra Sinha. Hi Dhirendra, welcome to the YouTube podcast.
Thanks Aman for having me over here. I'm extremely excited to kind of talk about my journey, and if can help other folks out, I'm super kind of excited to kind of share that with you folks all.
Absolutely, thank you so much. So Dhirendra, I think you spent 1.5 decades, right? And you have started your journey from the TCS, right? And now you are into the Google, right? And that too, in a product management, you spent really good amount of time, right? So can you just brief how your career journey would be, and overall, what was the spark where you decided I have to go now to the product team?
Oh, that's a good one. That kind of takes me back to memory lane. In fact, because first company is always special. We all know. Your first day at office, your first salary, you never forget. Even when you kind of go along the path and do a lot of things with different companies, correct, you still very much cherish that moment. So yes, I started my career with TCS. I was fresh out of college at that point of time after engineering. I was fortunate at that point of time that I worked on several data warehousing projects over there. And one of the key things was that I got an opportunity to work with one of the biggest telecom companies over there. And one of the data warehouses that we were managing was in fact the 4th largest database in the world. Wow. Now that gave me an exposure in terms of how the data management field was the scale of that, and how the volume and the veracity kind of differs from one project to another. So that was an incredibly exciting moment for me. Then I moved on, I would say, joined different startups, company of different shapes and sizes, I would say. But I think you asked about what kind of is the pivotal moment for me.
Correct.
I think I was working back in Singapore for one of the companies which was based out of Chennai, and I was working for one of the clients in Singapore, and then something clicked me. I would say what I have been doing was more in terms of how to build, but I wanted to shift gear and see what to build. Now that was one of the pivotal moments that I decided that I'll quit my job over here in Singapore, which was very I would say it was not easy to quit that one because you have a lot of cushion over there.
Correct, yeah.
And then I came back to India, joined a startup, which was a data management startup back again. I think that was one moment, that was one calling of mine which changed my career a lot.
Okay. And then you moved to Informatica, which correct, is again a data focused company, right? Data is the center there, right? So what was your role into Informatica?
Yeah, sure. Informatica kind of happened as a company because I was working with startup, then I moved to a mid-sized company. Informatica was a truly scalable global company which was kind of helping build not consumer level product, but enterprise products which were more in terms of the scale that somebody likes to work on.
Okay.
Now, as a PM over there, I was working on mostly data pipelines and data management tools, which kind of helped the journey for the analysts and data engineers as we go along that path. Now, things were a lot different back at Informatica, because the problem that we were, or the challenge that we were serving, was impacting magnitude of customer, which was very different from the startups that I came from. So the change of experience kind of helped me a lot in terms of evolving my PM skills as well.
Correct.
So that was one of the, I would say, shifting gear which happened for me while I moved from a startup culture onto Informatica at a later point of time.
Okay. And then the key thing turned out to go to the Google.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I was working back at Informatica, things were working fine, but I had that mindset that while I'm kind of chasing problems which are affecting or kind of impacting magnitude of customers, still companies like Google are building planet scale problems, or solving in fact planet scale problems.
Yeah.
Now that's something which you always desire for as a PM, because you have the ability to kind of impact lives of magnitude of customers, and kind of in different segments and verticals as well. Now that kind of created that desire in me, where I tried and kind of moved on to Google, and we'll talk about it in greater detail. But I think that was again a momentous journey for me while I kind of moved into Google and kind of started my career and journey over there. It was a cultural shift for me, for sure. And I think we can dive into it at a later point of time, how that kind of changed my perception of product management as a whole as well.
Correct. Great. Now, I think, so let's deep dive a little bit into the overall role, your product and all, right? So in Google, what is your current role, just for the background for everyone?
Absolutely.
And the product as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll touch on that, maybe just making sure that I'm not sharing something which is...
Absolutely.
So here at Google, I'm working again on building data management product, which kind of helps customer move their data from variety of different sources onto cloud platforms, especially GCP in that case for us. Now, while we do that, one of the challenges that we are trying to solve for the customer is, I would say, ease of use, how well they can move their data pretty easily, the challenge of different varieties of data which are there, and the magnitude of data. So scale is one problem definitely that we are trying to solve for. Then the second one is definitely the variety of data that is coming from plethora of different sources which are there. I think that's two distinct flavors that from a challenge perspective that we are solving here at Google.
Okay, that's a really great answer. And even I think, the way Google offers the variety of services or the GCP is absolutely useful for tons of people in terms of variety as well. If you go from any small, micro, medium to the large enterprise, everyone using GCP, right? And that's why the more users are there, you'll get more the problems, right? And that's why we require a product which scale at any point of time. It can scale to small to the biggest one. So absolutely. So now when we talk about the product, right? So at a Google, what is something which is different as a PM compared to the other company product manager? Already you have worked with the Informatica or other startup as well, right? So what is the biggest difference as a PM? You see that this is beyond conventional product management.
Absolutely. I think that's a very good question, first of all, because while I joined Google, I would say I was mostly carrying a baggage that I know a lot of stuff in terms of product management. I have worked in startup, I have worked in mid-sized company. So I was pretty much sure this is another drill for me. I'm going in a company which is pretty big in size. I'll just land over here, start my job and kind of start delivering on day one. Now that's not how Google works, because there is a cultural shift which happens when you join from different company onto Google. Google has its own way of embracing people and cultures when people come from different companies. Now it takes time, it takes some moment in order to absorb that culturally, I would say. There are two distinct, I would say, character or I would say areas in terms of how product management differs at Google. First one being, I would say, is mostly in terms of the DNA of Google. Google is, I would say, engineering first company. So as a PM, your conviction about the product needs to be very strong. I think you need to kind of make sure that while you are talking with engineering, your stakeholders, you bring that conviction in terms of making sure that they are kind of onboarded with the idea or the feature that you are bringing in, because engineering is absolutely rock solid here at Google, and you need to make sure that while you are putting things in perspective in terms of feature, capability or business value that the feature brings on, it has to be convincingly strong in order to kind of cater to that audience. So that's one thing. I would say engineering first is something which is DNA of Google. The second thing which I believe is more in terms of decision making framework. I think that kind of differs. I mean, that was a striking change which I believed I saw compared to other companies, because here at Google, decision making is grounds up. People who build the product are the ones who take the decision. They decide, okay, this is something which is good for me. This is something which will fit in the purview of the feature. And when I say people who work, I think it's a close combination of three kind of people. One is definitely the PM, then the lead engineering counterpart who is kind of working on that feature, and then there is this UX designer. All these three people need to be in sync in order to create that, I would say, symphony, in order to create something which is extremely valuable for the customers. And that decision kind of is leveled up, and stakeholders kind of agree to that. So that's a striking difference, I would say, in terms of the decision making process that I saw here at Google.
Okay, but so if you see, when there is a cross-functional collaboration, obvious it would not be as straightforward and easy as well, right? So you have mentioned that engineering lead, the UX people and the PM, these three combo has to take a fine decision that new change request or some feature has to be integrated in which way, right? So how you resolve the conflicts?
Yeah, I think that's a very good one, and it's not a very straight, I would say, silver bullet which kind of fits, or not a single shoe which will fit all, I would say, in this scenario. But I think communication is the key at any point of time. One thing which I'm a strong believer of, one key skill which every product manager needs to carry is to communicate. And while you communicate, you need to kind of communicate very clearly with clarity. Your thought process needs to be very concise, and you need to be kind of thoughtful enough to kind of respect others' decision or thought process as well, and bring that level of clarity to the whole discussion. I think that's very important as a PM. So while I work with the UX or the engineering people, that conviction and clarity is the one factor which I believe which helps always in case you are having any communication with them, and kind of onboard them in your idea. It's not that they are UX people, they are engineering. You need to act as a single team. That's why I said it's a symphony that needs to play together. Correct. And then you kind of bring the best out of the team together.
And when you say, enhancement or new feature, right? So even at the same time, it is important that you have to play the role to make some innovation as well. And I believe every product manager must do, right? So how exactly in Google do you guys balance out the thing that, how much portion of the innovation should be there along with new feature enhancement? And in that, what is the role of engineering as well? You guys are in sync always to do innovation, or it would be maybe on your own you have to do like that?
No, again, that's a very good one. Again, it kind of relates back, Savan, I would say, in terms of a core product management skill over here.
Correct.
Because while you think of a PM, you need to strategically think from a tactical perspective as well as long-term strategy as well. Now, while you define your goal for coming semester, coming releases, you need to be cognizant of the fact that there are two elements. One is definitely innovation. The other one is terms of the current customers who you need to address for. Now, at a company like Google, since the number of customers is huge and humongous, I would say it's not very easy to sideline the ask which is coming from the customers.
Yes.
And at the same point of time, you need to be kind of eyeing at innovation as well. So one guiding principle which I follow is you need to have your vision very clear. And once you have a clarity in terms of the vision, it kind of acts as a lighthouse for you.
Okay.
And you need to align your entire strategy, may it be tactical, may it be strategic, in terms of how you can navigate towards that lighthouse.
Okay.
And that's where I believe that while you think about even the small term goals or I would say near future goals or long term goals, you need to kind of make sure that the vision is getting catered out of it. So now that's more philosophical, I would say, but when we bring that into practice here at Google, what we tend to do, we kind of allocate some bandwidth every time. I mean, it may be a certain percentage, it may be a certain number of people, but we need to be making sure that we stay ahead of the curve in the market. And also, it is determined from where the product is in terms of the journey or life cycle of the product. Because if the product is matured enough, you can very well kind of focus a lot on, I would say, innovation aspect of it.
Yes.
But if the product is kind of picking up in the market, you need to kind of listen to the users and whatnot. So it's a combination of both, but definitely it has to be kind of well balanced enough, as you were saying, while you kind of think about innovation or even the angle of the customer ask which are there.
Correct. So really good answer, really good answer. Just two more follow-up question. I'm just thinking when you were answering, one you have answered that you have to, so basically when you have tons of customer, you have to focus with what is your vision and you have to align everything to that. That's one thing. Second thing, what you have mentioned is about when there is a new product, right? You have to balance out, right? If it's a new, you will stay on the curve to get it saturated or mature product. And if it's already saturated or at one point of time, then you may think of what to do next.
Absolutely,
that, right?
Absolutely.
So in that case, how you prioritize the work, especially when you have long pipeline in terms of many customers asking something to do, you also have to focus that this is my vision, this is my annual goal with my product, and now I have to move my product in this way. Because very important one line you mentioned that you have to always ahead of the curve. And being in Google, absolutely you have to be, right?
Absolutely.
That's a very key thing. So how you balance out both the things?
No, again, that's a very thoughtful follow-up question, I would say, Savan. So one thing which I think all of us as PM need to make sure here at Google is kind of balance is one key thing, one definite key element that we need to bring out. But while we think about balancing act, we need to kind of judge how the market is progressing as well.
Okay.
And in terms of priorities, I think it's a mix of in terms of the value creation that you are doing for the customer. Now, even if you are trying to do some innovation, you have a sense of what is the value that it will bring for the customer. So you need to keep that in mind while you are kind of trying to prioritize. So I think the value creation for the customer is a key element, or in fact a framework as well, which you need to kind of mentally adopt to while you kind of think about in terms of the priority matrix, in terms of how you want to keep your items. It's not about clearing the backlog, it's more about how and what level of value addition you can do to the customers.
Okay, that's really good one. Really great answer, Dhirendra. Okay, so now moving to the journey of a Google, right? So when you joined the Google, right? So how those initial days? Is there any key challenge when as soon you join, you think that this is something I was not at all expecting? What was initial days?
That's a good one. I think I completed a year's time pretty recently here at Google, and while you complete a year's time, it's mostly a noogler which you are called here. So I mean, the initial few days, few months, it's I would say it's navigating through the sea without a compass. That's how it will be for you. It's not very easy at times because you always feel like, am I lost? Am I at the right place? You always ask that question. But I think you need to trust the process which Google has built over a period of time. And they have made this process so seamless that while you go through it, you are kind of getting rounded off as a product manager as well. You are kind of making decisions in the right way. You are thinking about directionally right stuffs. but that's a process which you need to go through. Even if you think like, okay, am I doing the right stuff out? Am I doing the right thing? Is this training right for me or not? It's more of a cultural fitment that you need to do. I think I will put it this way. In the initial 6 months, you need to focus on what Google culture is all about and leave aside all the, I would say, noises and other stuff which are coming your way, because you may feel like, as I told you, you may feel like you are lost, but at the end of the day, you are navigating in the right direction. Google is somehow helping you out, build your own pathway while you kind of do that, and your journey would be defined based on that. So I think that's incredibly different from other companies that I have worked with. There is no defined path. You have to make your own pathway. So I see that kind of evolves you in a better product manager, as a better human being as well. So that's a key, I would say, which Google kind of differentiates from other companies in general.
And any kind of challenge you face in initial days, some example if you thought?
Oh, absolutely. Maybe I can cite some, because the day I joined, I didn't meet anyone. That was surprising for me. Nobody came and greeted me. So that's not very common when you are joining a new company. Nobody comes and greets you. There were set of mails which came my way. I was kind of asynchronously going through the emails, understanding what the processes are. Okay, go through this training. I was second thinking, did I join the right firm, or this is? I checked my, I would say, letter of appointment. I mean, did I kind of choose the company which I wished for? But that got changed, as I said, in couple of months, because things evolve over there, things kind of change. Even being a big company and having a lot of processes, Google is very agile in terms of adopting to new things, adopting to new changes, in terms of strategy changes and all that. I was incredibly astonished to see how quickly things changes back at Google. I mean, it's not very often that you see a company of this size kind of changes its strategy to adopt to the market, to adopt to competition and whatnot. So there is a lot of things which are going on every now and then at Google.
Wow. Sir, and I think now we highly understand what is the product management in a Google, what is your career path, and as well what is the new days of the Google, right? So till now we understand your journey very well. So now let's shift the gear and move towards a technology part of podcast. So Google is a highly tech-driven company, right? Absolutely. And being in a company like a Google, right? So how you keep yourself up to the mark in terms of technology, in terms of AI evolution specifically nowadays, right? We are in a big wave of AI, right? So what are the key things you always keep yourself up to the mark, just to be, top of the game?
Absolutely. Again, a very good one. Because while you join a company like Google, you at times become very complacent. Okay, I've joined a company, I don't need to do anything. But Google pushes you, I would say.
Absolutely.
And this whole era of AI which is in front of us, I think it's life-changing for all of us in technology field. Even people who are in non-tech field, they are getting impacted because of it in a very good way, I would say. So this whole era of AI has impacted the culture at Google as well. Now, as I said, there is a lot of push from Google. First thing first, we have a lot of programs which are done on a weekly basis in order to update the Googlers in terms of what is happening in the AI field, what's going on, how as product manager we can adapt ourselves to this whole AI stuff. What are the tools and technologies that will help us out in terms of the productivity? Leave aside engineering. I think we'll come to that. That's a whole different ballgame at Google. But even for the product managers, it was surprising for me to see in terms of the tools and technology that is being used. There is a lot of change which happens because of AI, and you will see that your productivity enhances a lot because of that. I mean, so just to kind of remind an anecdote, what I was kind of having. I think last month there was one session from somebody back at Google, and they very clearly defined that being a product manager, if you're not building something using AI at Google, you are not doing the right thing. So just beware of that. Yeah. So even being a PM, you need to be very clear that you are using AI, you are putting things in perspective, and you are building something out of it.
Correct.
It's not just about knowing things; it's about building stuffs as well.
Wow, that's great. But as you said, so the AI tools make productivity more. For engineering would be absolutely different than the you guys using in a product management team, right? So when it comes to the product management team, what is the expectation from the product management in terms of high productivity, high into the product evolution, right? Because you have to keep evolving your product as well, right? So what is the expectation from you guys?
So I think I'll try touching upon some of the aspects over here. One thing is, as a PM, what are the core things that you need to kind of focus on? I think we talked about PM skills, but I'll just try to kind of distinctly call out. One is definitely the area of research, which has improved significantly. When you do competitive intel, when you do competitive research, there is a whole notion of deep research in Gemini.
Absolutely.
Right now. We all are aware on that front, but it has changed my life as a PM drastically, I would say. Now you don't need to kind of spend 2-3 days in order to get a report out of how your competition is doing, where they are going, where the market is heading. You just need to have the right prompts in order to get the right competitive intel and determine, am I doing strategically the right stuffs out in order to move in the market. So that's one aspect I would say as a PM which kind of is getting impacted and getting improved. Then the second area is the data point collection from the users as well. Now, it's very important while we think of feedbacks from customers that you get the right set of feedback and you analyze the feedback in the rightest manner as well. I think there is whole notebook LLM which I have used a lot in recent time. Again, that has changed the ball game of customer research, feedback, and getting insight out of it drastically.
Absolutely.
And I remember we did some research back then to understand the customer sentiment, where exactly they are heading. The whole thing, which could have taken maybe at least a couple of weeks in order to do that, the whole analysis for the team was done, I would say, in a couple of hours. And I was ready with the presentation the very next day in terms of, okay, this is how my customer have reacted to the feature that we have released. This is the feedback. This is the customer sentiment. We are going in right direction or not. It makes the decision making process so fast that you need to kind of make sure that you are up to the pace in order to kind of manage that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's really a good answer you have made. So just one more point, I just want to connect with this. So you have mentioned that one is a competitive analysis is absolutely going higher and higher. Another one is a data-driven collections, right?
Yeah.
So as a product manager, you just mentioned, right, there are the three people, engineering, PM and the UX people. At that time, from the product management side, you put the data-driven, sentiments or the ideas, right, just to be getting more accurate, output.
Yeah, I think I'll try to relate it to the answer which I gave regarding what's distinctly differ here at Google from other companies. Now, one thing which I talked with you, Savan, was that being at Google, the DNA is engineering first.
Yeah.
And PM needs to be the conviction of PM needs to be very strong in order to persuade their engineering team, their stakeholders, in order to progress and make a judgment out of the feature set that you are trying to build on. Now, in order to have the buy-in, you need to have data decisions, I would say, accurate data to be present in order to make the right decisions, I would say, over there. Now, that is being helped a lot in terms of what you just now asked, because those data points that we collect from different customers help the decision making process much faster, because when I present to my stakeholders, I have a data point that says that 50% of my customers are not able to use this feature because of XYZ. Now that becomes a pain point, and it's much more that I can say with much more conviction rather than just saying, okay, my customer is not able to use that. Stakeholder may ask me n number of questions which might not fit into the entire, I would say, scheme of things. So that has changed a lot, I would say, for me at least over here.
When you say market research, right? So one thing what I really wanted to understand from the strategic thinking, right? So whenever there is a new business requirement, right? So always it comes to you, right? And then you build the complete case study analysis, right? And then you'll go back to the engineering or a UX people, right?
Absolutely.
So in that one, what are for you, how you define that this is my value proposition? These are the key things I always put first in terms of market research, maybe pricing point of view, some positioning point of view, or maybe new feature should be accommodated or not. Because every time saying yes to new requirement is also not good, right? So how you define this?
Oh, absolutely. I think the way you asked, there are multiple questions ingrained in it, Savan. I think one thing which is extremely important before we go in terms of the decision making process is to have the right data point, as I was speaking about.
Correct.
The second thing which we can do from research, which we can do from collecting data point from customers and prospects, and doing a market research as well. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is also in terms of defining the value that we bring onto the table.
Okay.
Now, there are some key metrics that needs to be defined in terms of how you think from a value proposition standpoint that the product will bring onto the table or the feature will bring onto the table. And I believe that there is a whole shift in terms of mindset which a PM needs to do, because it's not about the technical capability or building the coolest product in the market. It's more about bringing the right value to the customers, which I was kind of mentioning a little while ago as well, that the value which you are bringing to the customer has to be correct. It has to provide meaningful result to the customer. So I think there is a core framework which I generally conceptually think about. First thing first, you need to kind of see from the perspective what are the different segments of customers that you need to kind of divide it. And again, this is not driven from the perspective what's the revenue of the customer. Generally, that's a notion which people kind of go for.
Correct.
I think that has also evolved. You need to think in data management products where exactly customer lies in their journey in terms of the product they are trying to use, how the data maturity is for the customer. So you need to tier your customer based on that. Some customers, for example, might be pretty advanced in terms of their journey. They might be already using some of AI stuff. They are on cloud. They are trying to use AI, build some models for fraud detection, especially the financial companies. I have seen financial companies are way ahead, I would say, in terms of the curve where exactly things needs to be from an AI perspective, especially because they want to mitigate risk on their end.
Absolutely.
So that customer segmentation is very important for you to determine which customers you are kind of catering onto. Now, once you have done customer segmentation, you need to decide from a value proposition framework what is the value that you are bringing onto the table. Is the product or the feature that you are trying to build is bringing the right value to the customer segment that I am reaching out to. And that can be a combination again when you talk of value. Are you kind of giving them enough in terms of adoption of the product? Are you engaging your customer well? Are you creating core value proposition for the product or not, for the customers or not? I think these three things from a value proposition perspective becomes important while you think of it.
Okay. And in that one, just one follow-up thing is that you mentioned about customer segment, but as far as Google is there, the one thing is that there are a customer segment, but at the same time, there is a multiple industry level segment as well.
Absolutely.
Right? So in that, how you categorize based on different industry, based on customer, as well based on maybe the reach of the usability?
Yeah, I think again a very good follow-up question, Savan. Thanks for asking this one because we have been trying to kind of define some of this as we kind of build our product.
Okay.
The product which I'm working on, by the way, it's not a very old product. It's a very recent one.
Okay.
2-3 years old product, kind of getting the chasm and the right amount of eyeballs which we want from our customers. So it's kind of catching up in the market.
Okay.
There is a lot of traction on the product side. Now we are trying to define some of these segments as well while we kind of work on this. Now one of the things which is, I think you outlined pretty well, is there are predefined I would say industry segments which Google is already having. But while there are some, so that's the downside, I would say a little downside of being in a company which already have some standards set.
Correct. Yeah.
Because you have defined processes, defined standards, you need to kind of abide to that. But at the same point of time, you are given the flexibility to flex your muscles in terms of what you want more in order to grow your product. Now here, the question which you asked is very important for us to determine for my service, how important for me are these segments which are predefined.
Okay.
And I do have the luxury to kind of break that down into different other segments as well.
Okay.
For example, enterprise, SMB, these are standard segments which are there.
Yes.
But for my product, this might not fit into the purview because my whole focus area is little different from the whole conceptual model as well. I need to think little differently. Okay. So I think over here I have my own definition little bit which we have created for our service, which is aligned to what is there at Google, but not entirely same what is there at Google as well. So that flexibility is also there for us to define at a service level, while there is something which is already defined at an org level.
I believe it's a product to product change, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a product to product change, and each of the service is kind of dealt little differently in terms of what is the value proposition they are bringing onto the table, what kind of customers they are catering onto. Now, the whole gamut of things remains same at a very broader level if we have to speak, because you are talking about GCP and you are not talking about siloed product for that matter or siloed service for that matter. I can't go ahead and talk only about the product which I am working on, but you also need to kind of talk about the whole gamut of things which comes along with GCP. Okay, while you work on this product, this will impact this other things as well for the customer. So I think that's very realistic for customers to understand the whole value chain of the process through which the data is going for them, and kind of get it from there.
Wow, that's a really detailed answer, Dhirendra. So now we understand from the product and engineering perspective, the value proposition and the tuning between this cross-functional team. So now let's move towards the outside, customer facing, right?
Sure.
So just one thing what I want to understand is that there are tons of product in Google itself, right? So when you want to develop a new product, or when you have a product, and if you want to correct your position into the market, right?
Yeah.
So what are the key things you always keep into mind? For example, your current product is absolutely, you said a couple of years ago you started, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So now how exactly you are positioning your product into the market?
I think one thing which is very evident while you work with a cloud vendor like Google or other companies of that matter, one thing which is very different from specialized companies like Informatica for that matter, is that you already have a counterpart in all these cloud vendors as well. So there is an exact replica of the service which is present on all the cloud vendors.
Correct.
Almost exact replica.
Yes.
Because that's how the vendors compete against each other. So that's where the competition is. And again, while you think about it, one thing is definitely in terms of keeping an eye on the competition, where the market is heading. That's one signal which you get. Second set of signal comes for you from your customers. The customers who you are using the product, they are the one who are champions of it. They are the ones who are using it. And it's amazing experience when you talk with this set of customers in terms of the new use cases that they unravel while they work on it. Because you may have thought that your product can work in defined n number of ways. there is a n+1 use case which your
Absolutely.
customer would
Always
come, and you will be kind of surprised, and you need to kind of tweak it a little bit in order to accommodate that customer as well. So I think that's a second area which you need to focus on. First is competition. Second is in terms of the customer feedback which you are getting, which based on which you need to tweak. And third, which is very important to kind of again think from that perspective, is the innovation angle. Because competition will drive you in terms of a catching game. Because when you think of competition, you will see that, okay, I have to fixate A because that is a missing feature on my end. Or maybe I need to work on B, a feature B which is not there. But in this whole era of, I would say, competition, you need to be ahead in the curve.
Absolutely.
And that's where you need to drive where the market would go in coming period of time. Not only competition, think from 5-10 years perspective, long-term perspective, more from a strategy standpoint, where you want to take the product onto, what's the vision of your product, how you would align it to the market 5 years down the line in this new era of Gen AI. I think those whole questions need to be answered while you kind of bring your product strategy onto the table and decide in terms of what needs to be built in the product.
I think these are the couple of points is a really good advice to many other PMs, to the other enterprise as well, because it also applicable as a PM looking at to the competitive landscape will give you the edge ultimately, right? That's the only thing you can get, because there are competitors. Everyone is building something new, right? So you have to get that edge to be in the race, right? So yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a great. Okay, now Viral, you said about the market, right? So into one follow-up thing is that how you look as a market statics in terms of once your product you are there. So basically one thing you mentioned about customer feedback, right?
Yeah.
So you know that I have to take the feedback, at the same time I have to adapt it, improve it, and go back to the market, right? So this loop, how exactly you are looking into this loop? Should it be how quick, how effective, and how optimal you can think of?
No, that's again a very good one, Savan, because while you think about product development, it's not about building, as I said, a product which is technologically advanced, but again the value it brings onto the table.
Yes.
Now it ties in the whole GTM which needs to be done once the product is ready as well. Now think of a scenario because you need to iterate on it in terms of the feedback that we talked about. And GTM, by the way, whenever we talk about GTM, people think about its flashy marketing, it's flashy product launches that one needs to do. It's not just that. It's much more, I would say, involved, much more ingrained with talking with your customers, which you need to do in terms of the feedback that you need to kind of take from customer. And there is a whole feedback loop which you need to close on.
Correct. Yeah.
So you start taking feedback from the customer, you kind of iterate on your product in terms of refining it. You again kind of go back and let them know, okay, I've worked on the feedback, this is how the product looks like. Again, there will be more feedback, again you will do the refinement.
Yes.
So this is a whole cycle in which the product would evolve for you. And trust me, while working through different companies and again with different set of customers, you need to know your customers well as a PM. You need to, and they are the champions of your product. They will tell you what exactly the product is good at, what the product lacks. So always respect in terms of the customers who is providing feedback to you. So that's one thing, that's one principle which I follow a lot while I kind of go back and work on any new feature, is the voice of the customer, which matters a lot for me.
Correct. And how you address the dissatisfaction of the customer whenever you get the feedback?
Absolutely. So it's not always the rosy picture which we get about the product. Yeah. Absolutely. And as a PM, I think you need to be on the receiving end many a times. And that's interesting, by the way, because while you go on calls, there are times when people will talk good about your product. There will be times when customers would creep about your product as well. They will talk that product is not working in this scenario, that scenario, it failed my production go live and whatnot. So you need to be kind of ready for that as well. And always be empathetic. I would say a level of customer empathy has to be kind of baked in while you think about it. Whenever you are talking with them, think from the perspective that the customer, while they're coming to you, will have some level of the dissatisfaction is caused because of something which you need to kind of account for. Now, if it has to be a feature that needs to be built in the product, I need to go back and respect the priorities which I already have
Correct.
from other customers.
Yes.
So while you kind of respect what customer is asking for, you need to kind of sometime push back as well. That this is a new thing which you are asking for. Maybe it's the use case is not getting covered, but this is not something where we are heading right now in coming 6 months of time. I can take it back. I can work in terms of the priority, but this is not fitting in my entire plan right now. So a pushback is also required at times, and if there is a bug which needs to be taken care immediately, you can very well work with engineering and kind of do away with that, which we do most of the time for our customers as well.
And depend on the volume of work also, that also matters, right?
Absolutely.
Because if it's a small, then quick fix maybe work and get it back to the customer, give them satisfaction. Sometimes that also work. At the same time, if work is there, then also obviously you have to push, or maybe you have to buy some time. That challenge is always there. You have to balance out. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's very important, because when I say talk about value is not about creating the right, I would say, customer product in terms of what it kind of brings for the customer on the table, but it's also a factor of how much of investment you need to do. You need to think from that perspective as well. You might be building a very good feature which impacts magnitude of different customers who will be benefited out of it, but it may require a ton of investment which you can't do right now.
Correct.
So and that is one of the critical elements. While you work in the enterprise world and you have so many customers, you have a very defined bandwidth, and everything kind of is defined from the bandwidth that you have from engineering. So you kind of need to think from the perspective that it has to be a factor of value and the bandwidth that is required for the customers at times. So
I believe one of the biggest the battle of a product manager is always there is a finite bandwidth of engineering versus there is an infinite work of pipeline that you have to address, right?
Absolutely.
And many times just saying that no, this will be after 2 quarters. So customer will just simply say, why 2 quarters you want, right? So that is a big challenge as a product manager.
Absolutely, and it kind of brings back a lot of memories, because it's like it's on a weekly basis that you kind of deal with such customers, and many a times they will have certain use cases which are kind of big in nature, and you can't go in that direction right now, and you have to be respectful enough of the use case that the customer is bringing, but you can't just do, because there is a finite amount of bandwidth, like the way you said, someone, there is a finite amount of bandwidth that you can leverage for building the product. Now, while you think from that perspective, you need to kind of apply that value metrics in terms of how much value creation you are doing for the customer, how many customers would be impacted, what is the benefit from a long-term perspective as well that I'll bring onto the table. Because it's not only a factor of the current set of customers, you also need to see where you are heading in the market, how the market will respond to it maybe 2 years down the line. Because we talked about in terms of the innovation angle of it. Innovation doesn't always give you fruit right now, right away. It may be a case that you are building something for 2 years down the line while you are investing on it. So if there is not a immediate recognition of, I would say, value, it may happen somewhere down the line, which you kind of need to think about and maybe factor in your calculations as well while you think about that.
Correct. That's a great thing. So till now, I think we have catered about a product, how the new feature to the existing evolvement, everything is working into the product, into the engineering. So majority part is covered. Now one more step ahead to that. So every product, because see, this is a product, right? So none of the product in the world that will not have some bug or some fix or some issue is there, right? Something will definitely be there. So if there is an issue, there would be always the severity and the priority of the issue. Sometimes it would be minor, trivial, but sometimes it would be very critical, impactful, impacting tons of people. So how you look at, or how in Google the escalation and some uncertainty works out for the product?
That's again a very good one, and quite an involved one, because here at Google, again, that is one differentiating factor which I have seen, Savan, which we were talking about how kind of Google differentiates. Now, one thing which is there is people are involved, stakeholders are involved in every decision making as well.
Okay.
Though it's kind of a decision which is taken bottoms up in terms of the decision making framework, but I was amazed to see that every feature passes VP level, I would say, approval in order to have it implemented. You can't just kind of go ahead and implement anything which is impacting so many customers out.
Correct.
You can have a voice, you can make a case out of that feature, but there has to be a final approval of a VP level person here at Google. So that's amazing, and that kind of same percolates for the issues as well. If there is an issue, I think I have never seen a company kind of throwing so many hands towards it in order to make sure that the issue is mitigated at the earliest. And what is the RCA of that? I mean, there is a whole focus in order to make sure that the issue never reoccurs. So that's also amazing. And you won't believe to the level these issues which are impacting multiple customers goes in terms of, I would say, reviews as well. Sometimes it's amazing to see some of the people getting involved. I mean, the stakeholders whom you have not talked with at times, but they are getting involved because there is some issue with the product which is affecting multiple different customers, or which has impacted multiple different customers in the past, and they want to have a very clear RCA in terms of why it happened, what was the step that was taken, and what we are trying to do in order to mitigate that in coming period of time. Now that's a culture, I think, where you are putting your customer first and making sure that while your customers kind of work on your product and kind of take the best out of your product in terms of the value creation, you also kind of make sure that some of the issues don't happen recursively and don't happen again for them. So that's a differentiating, I would say, cultural thing which I saw here at Google.
And that is even very, very important, because the usability, it is in millions and billions.
Absolutely.
So not a single percentage of any low hanging fruit we can leave it. So I think that is very, very important.
And just to add to that, because many a times this enterprise product may not have a magnitude of users, but the impact in terms of the value is humongous. For example, because we are talking about enterprise product may have only thousands of customers, which from Google perspective may be not very large. I would say when I say thousands, it's in tens of thousands of customers again. But even the tens of thousands of customers is pretty small compared to how Google Maps functions, or Google Pay functions, and all these consumer apps functions. So enterprise apps are a little different. I would say enterprise services are a little different. But even when the number of consumers are less or numbers of users are less, you still need to kind of think from an impact perspective which it will bring for the customers. Because they are using it in production, their whole thing may stall, or their whole reporting may stall because there is a small issue which is kind of conflicting, maybe just a data type. And the whole thing would change how the customer sees the report. So the impact is pretty large, I would say, even if the number of customers may be on the lesser side for enterprise products.
Okay, and the process you shared, right? So there are a couple of products is a B2C facing. At the same time, couple of them are a B2B, right? So to handle all the uncertainty, the process is absolutely same across all the product?
To my understanding, to the best of my knowledge, to be honest on that, it's same, and it's very severe on both the sides of the houses, whether it's B2B, whether it's B2C. Any customer problem is dealt with severity. It's kind of raised highly, escalated to the highest level. And for example, when we talk of cloud vendors, these are regions that we talk about, where exactly the impact was, which region was impacted, whether it's kind of impact only a single region, single customer,
Correct.
whatnot. When there is a impact which kind of impacts multiple regions, more than one region, even the highest of here at Google gets involved. For enterprise product I'm talking about on the GCP side. So that's a super, I would say, cool thing. At the same point of time, you are very accountable what you are building as
Exactly.
well.
Yeah.
You need to bring reliability as part of the product as a core aspect.
Correct.
Reliability
Yeah.
can't be thought after thing in a product, enterprise product for that matter, because you are impacting the lives of your customer, you are impacting the way your customer does day-to-day business on their end. So you need to be cognizant of that fact, and while you are kind of thinking about any product feature, one silver lining which always has to be there is in terms of the reliability, which has to be baked in for sure.
Wow, that's really great answer, Dhirendra. So now we talk about product really well in detail. So now for any feature or for the any product, as a product manager, how exactly you are looking at scalability of the product? Because as you mentioned, thousands is nothing for Google, right? Google is always take every product, every feature to the billions of people, right? Even in B2B also, it would be on a very large scale across
Absolutely.
all the geography, right?
Absolutely.
So how you see that scalability?
No, again, that's a very important question that you are asking, because while we think of enterprise product, there are two key challenges which we need to address. I think the scale, which you are talking about, and the second aspect is in terms of the whole, because we are talking about data pipelines for that matter.
Yeah.
I have been mostly working through data pipelines throughout my career. So two key elements or two key challenges which are there. One is definitely in terms of scale. Second one is in terms of latency, it being real time, because we are in an era, again I'll try to relate it back to the whole AI thing, because while we think of AI, one core thing which is kind of required for all these AI models is to have data fed to them in a faster manner, in a real-time basis, and also the volume of data has to be pretty large. I mean, that's a competitive edge when we think about companies, that you have volumes of data, you have variety of data that you are feeding into AI models to have the right and reliable set of result which you can trust on. So that's very important. So when you think about scale, I think here at Google, that's part of the framework that engineering team kind of works on, which they kind of develop on, and it has to be thoroughly tested as well. So whenever there is a feature which is going on in terms of development, there is a whole cycle of, I would say, scalability test that needs to be done. Are we kind of testing to the extent that our customers use on a day-to-day basis? Are we kind of green on that test? And while we kind of are talking about it, one distinction again which is there in terms of specifically in the way the culture here at Google works in terms of the engineering part, is that the whole engineering kind of focuses a lot on the aspect of reliability as well as the scalability a lot while they kind of work on it. So if you do a preview of feature, you need to wait I would say close of 6 months time frame when you can GA the feature. That's a very standard process. But again, while I'm speaking of it, I'm not speaking on behalf of
absolutely,
Google, because things kind of differ from services to services as well. And but that's the general notion, because you want to have the right set of feedback, you want to have the customer tested it thoroughly while you kind of go and kind of make the product or feature generally available to all the customers.
So what I take it as a key takeaway is that maybe it's good to take time before making it to GA, but before GA it has to be thoroughly tested, well reliable, easy to scalable, and then should be go to the customer frame.
Absolutely. And you won't believe, if you haven't tested your product good enough, if you haven't have backing in terms of the product customer feedback, and you go for approval, you may be denied approval to go GA of the feature, even if you have previewed it 6 months back. I have seen such cases happening where you have done preview 6 months back, but in the 6 months time frame, maybe some customer raised that, okay, I'm not that satisfied with the product, or this reliability angle or the SLA angle has been breached over the time period. So I have seen that happening, that the approval may not even go while you kind of think about it.
And just one question, for B2C product, see, Google have very big workforce, right? So is it something for B2C product they have internal testing also within the Google employees or something?
Oh, that's again a good one, because one thing which I love about Google, you need to you get the first hand taste of all the products here.
I was suspecting,
yeah. So anything which comes out, we are the first consumers of it. So we call it dog fooding, which is a general terminology as well. And the latest and the greatest is available to Googlers even before it reaches the market. Any new feature on the camera phones, any new features on photos, whether you talk about maybe B2C or you talk about even the B2B or the enterprise products as well, we get to test the latest and the greatest, as I was talking about, and that's the beauty of working here at Google. So I just really love it, because when I joined in the first 3 months, since I wasn't having too many different stuffs to do, I just tried a lot of different products, which was not in my, I would say, work purview as well. I was just trying it out, giving some feedbacks, closing some loops, and trying to test on my own. So that was amazing while the initial few days as well.
Wow, that's a really great thing. And now just one more thing in terms of outside towards the product management is that from customer point of view, right? What is your thought when product is, I would say, used and tested well to the customer, but at the same time, you yourself found that there are, based on various customer, I can see there are multiple customizations are there, and now as a product manager, I have to take a call. What are the features or particular request from that customer should be adapted, because that might be used across multiple customer, and what are a couple of features that I would not like to accommodate. So what are that key factor you always consider?
Yeah, no, again, that kind of reminds me of the value matrix that we were just now talking about. I think it's very important to, as I said, respect the use case of the customer. You need to be cognizant of the fact that whatever use case customer is bringing in, they have certain requirement for it. But it may be the case that might not be viable to add everything as part of the product. That's where you need to have a right prioritization matrix and value matrix defined in order to see what is the value it kind of brings for other set of customers as well. Now, many a times what we have done is, if there is a requirement which is there, which kind of impacts multiple different customers, we go ahead and make it part of our priority list. But many a times when we see that if that doesn't add value for us, even if that kind of serves 10 different customers, but that doesn't add up to the vision of the product which we were talking initially, we don't go that path, and we very so these are tough, I would say, decisions which as a PM we all need to take, because it's not very easy to kind of scale your product if you start catering to all the requests which are coming your way. I think it will be good to kind of do that from a customer perspective, but from a long-term product vision perspective, it will not add up to where you want to take your product. So you need to always kind of think from that perspective, that any request which is coming has to be aligned with the product vision that you have determined for yourself.
So that is a very, very, very great answer, because in some of the enterprise, maybe that would be a sales driven also. So people always focus on the numbers and everything, but it's very good to take a tough call at some point of time to be a product company, and product driven focus. So absolutely, that is a really great answer. Now one more thing, so as a outside to the Google, we see a lot of features being evolved into the cloud computing, right? So always we have 3-4 different sources available for the cloud, right? Each cloud services give a couple of services, right? So as a outsider, what I'm thinking that today we get that this is the new service we are getting in the GCP, and maybe tomorrow something new will come to some other cloud, and maybe something else. Then you'll find ton of new into the GCP again, right? So as well, you guys also see the same data, right? The way we are seeing outside, but you might see before us as well, right? So how you consider and prioritize that, couple of features, couple of services which is already available that should be implemented as soon as possible, quickly, and as well it should bring more effectively. So that analysis, how exactly you do?
Again, that's a very good one, Savan. I think I'll take it back. I'll take a step back on the question which you asked. I think it's very important to kind of think from the perspective that while you think about any feature or anything, any new feature for that matter, you need to be considerate of the fact that it's not just that feature, by the way. While you think for that customer as well is the whole entire life cycle of the product. For example, if you are working on a data pipeline, it's not just data pipeline that we are talking over here. It's a whole notion about governance, curated data values, then definition of the metadata and everything around it. It kind of starts from the source, from where the data is getting created, till the time it is getting consumed. Now, in the entire life cycle of the data, your product or your service may be catering to one specific area. Okay. But when you go to the customer, you need to tie in this story of this entire data life cycle to them to truly understand the value. In that case, you may not just want to kind of talk about the value proposition which your product or service is only bringing in, but you need to kind of talk about the whole data product or the cloud data platform itself, for that matter. It's not just it's not just the particular service which can kind of help the customer, but the entire, say, stitching of the different services which help the customer out over there.
Dhirendra, now each product has their magnitude into a different geography as well, right? So as a product manager, while doing the market research or competitive analysis, how you see that the product and the geographic adaptation would differ, or sometimes would be aligned, or sometimes would be advantages for you, right? So how you can bifurcate those things?
Yeah, that's again a good one. I think one of the cool things about, again, I'll try to talk about GCP as a whole, because we as a service are hosted on GCP.
Yep.
So now whenever there is a need to be kind of expansion, first the expansion needs to happen for GCP in that locality.
Yes.
So most of the burden or heavy lifting is being done by GCP itself. Yeah. So for example, the laws and the restrictions, for example, in some of the European countries are way different in terms of data residency.
Yeah.
Data can't leave the country out, and there are a lot of restrictions which come in terms of the whole, I would say, whole gamut of things which needs to be kind of looked into while you kind of have your whole pod setup, which we call pod. Pod is nothing but infrastructure which you set up in that region. Yeah. Now, with that, as I said, the heavy lifting is mostly done by GCP. And when we as a service kind of spin up over there, most of the work is done. We just need to comply with all those in terms of the whole infrastructure requirement, in terms of data residency requirement, in terms of compliance requirement. It's most like checking the boxes with some level of work that needs to be done from service to service.
Wow, that's really great. Thank you. So now let's move to the last section. That's a rapid fire. Couple of quick and rapid questions for you. Okay. So one product you admire outside the Google.
Outside of Google. Okay, that's a good one. I think one area which is catching up a lot, which I see, and again, I'll speak from a technology front itself. One area which is catching up a lot is observability field, I would say. And there are a lot of players which are kind of doing a lot of good work. And Datadog is one such player, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they are doing a tremendous amount of good work in terms of unifying all the log management, all the issues which you kind of are not able to troubleshoot at a low level. They kind of provide a unified view of that. So that kind of takes me in terms of how exactly they are trying to again solve the problem for the customers is way different from other companies which are doing, at least in that area.
One quick advice for AI evolution for PM.
For PMs, I think one great thing being in this AI era is your productivity kind of changes a lot. Now, one thing which you can think of is shoot for the moon in this era, because there is a lot of possibility which you can bring onto the table. You don't think of incremental changes, I would say, in this era, because as a PM you need to kind of think about bigger stuffs, bigger things, and this is possible today because of the era we are living in with the Gen AI kind of helping you out on a lot of different stuffs. You can have your moonshot ideas kind of getting into practice and kind of getting implemented as well. So that's one thing which I'll say to PMs who kind of want to kind of do stuffs in this new era.
Okay, one book every PM should read.
Okay. I don't think there is one which I would, maybe a couple of them. There is one on by Don Norman, by the way, that is Design of Everyday Things.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a good one because it kind of talks about how elementally people need to think about designing a very, I would say, small stuffs which needs to be considered while you as a design engineer or a designer kind of thinking about some product feature. So I think that's one. Then definitely second book which is again truly interesting is Insanely Simple. Again, that's the story of Apple, which is kind of written by its creative director who worked with Steve Jobs at that point of time, and how he talks about the conviction with which you need to kind of work with your teams, and how much a level of I would say value addition you need to think when you are kind of working on a product.
Okay, your go-to mental model for decision making?
Okay. Again, that's a good one. I think I follow after at least. One thing which has changed for me being here at Google is there are two things. One is, and I try to follow over there what Jeff Bezos once said in terms of this mental model, the reversible and the irreversible model. Correct. I think that helps a lot at times, because if you think of a problem statement which can be reversed or anything which can be reversed, you can be pretty much quick on that. Take a quick decision, move on, because that can be reversed for you. If there is a one-way door, you need to be very cognizant of the fact that you need to take time, think logically, and then take a decision whether to go or not go in that direction for yourself.
Correct. One line that defines your product philosophy after Google?
Yeah, I think as a PM, I always believe now that you need to lead with problem statement rather than solution. I think that's extremely important, and this kind of ties in with the advice that I'll give as well to people or aspiring PMs as well. Think of the problem statement, stay with it. Don't jump onto solution. You don't need to build a solution which kind of is not catering to the broader perspective. So you need to be in the problem statement for some period of time, think from that perspective, and then only kind of try to devise a solution out of that.
Wow. And very last thing. Chai or coffee?
Though I just had coffee, but I am a chai lover, by the way, at heart.
Yeah.
So that's one thing which keeps me going for sure.
Wow, that's a great thing. So thank you so much, Dhirendra. So in today's episode, there are lots of learning, I would say, because if I just summarize this podcast, so we talk about starting from your career journey, how you evolved in a data management overall, how your role in Informatica, Google, and then we came to the product, how product thinking is there within the Google, what product matters to Google, how you talk to engineer, what are the key factors. You mentioned about three models between UX engineering and product, right? Later we talk about product positioning, we talk about strategic thinking, what are the frameworks you are using, and also we talk about uncertainty and the escalations you handle, right? And most importantly, we check on the competitive or a customer feedback, right? What are those value metrics, right? We talk about that, and then we jump to the scalability and the reliability part, right? And later we come to the product future with respect to AI era, right? So if you see, we live a big journey of you, and we understand overall what is the product importance or significance for the Google. So thank you so much for explaining everything, and really thank you so much for value added information.
Thanks, Aman, for having me over here. First of all, I mean, I was incredibly excited, as I said in the beginning, to kind of share my thought on some of the stuffs which I have worked on, and if it kind of helps your viewers or other folks out who are kind of aspiring to be PMs as well, I think it's super helpful for me as well.
Absolutely.
And kind of tick the boxes for everyone.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.